Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Falls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Ooh, boy, we got a loaded show here for you, Shane. We got Michael Katz from the DJ Journal, covers Ole Miss, going to join the show, talk about the game of the week in the SEC. We also got Preston Guy from TigerBait.com. So we got the Ole Miss perspective. We got the LSU perspective. This could be a heck of a show.
I love it, man. Game of the week. Let's highlight it, buddy. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it will be. I think this is going to be the game that they're going to be. CBS is nailing it, bro.
Yeah.
They absolutely hitting it out of the park. They know they're on their last days. You know what I'm saying? They know ABC's about to take over. So they're like, we got to really get some good games on here.
Yeah.
Let's go out with a bang. So enjoy Gary, because we don't got him much longer.
Now, I've got a fun show topic, Shane. I think you'll get this one right off the bat. But before we get to that, there's something you said you wanted to hit on. You said we got to hit on it.
Yeah.
And speaking of hit, Jermaine Burton. Oh my God. What you doing down here?
That's a hell of a segue, Mike. You know what I'm saying? Hit the portal, hitting women. This guy is just hitting everything. This is not a good look, brother. I mean, there was a video that came out earlier in the week, and it seemed like it was from a perspective of a male Tennessee Volunteer fan. Now, I know there's people saying, well, there's fans on the field. What do you expect? Okay, if it's a guy getting pushed out of the way by a football player, that's one thing. But this video, slowed down, looks like he has assaulted a female on the field. And that, in my book, brother, is unacceptable. That needs to be, because I say what you want. I mean, it's not great quality, but the female stopped. She grabbed her head. She looked back toward him. That gives you the perspective, in my opinion, that he assaulted this female, and it just should not be tolerated and should be dealt with swiftly. So I expect something sooner than later. Probably when this airs, you're going to already have some news of Nick Saban addressing this. It's just uncalled for, man. I mean, you are. If
let me
you break
take
it
the counter.
down,
Let me take the counter,
okay.
Shane. When you run out on the field, which you're not supposed to do, and I realize thousands of people did it, I feel like you kind of, not that you're opening yourself open for assault, but I mean, hell, I don't think the school's liable for, fans that there has been a case, I believe, at least one of a fan getting trampled to death. And that's why they don't want people storming on the field. And I'm not equating the two necessarily, but you could get hurt. You could be in danger. I have seen videos, Shane, where these drunk fans running at like Nick Saban, and these police. I mean, my God, they do not tolerate that whatsoever. They'll put you on your ass pretty damn quick. I realize it's not exactly what we're talking about here, but how's he to know that woman's not going to hit him, or she's just got a weapon, or I'm just taking the other side here.
Mike, you've seen the video, though. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I've seen it from about 200 yards away, yeah. I mean, I wasn't there,
Well, There was a zoomed-in video that has been released. So I'm not defending anything. Maybe I am. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little biased, but the fact of the matter is this thing was zoomed in enough to see that she was avoiding him.
Oh, gotcha.
She was not approaching him. Now, did she say something? Maybe that's what happened.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking assaulting a female, and you are one of. Listen, all the Tennessee fans that were on that field, not one of them was a better athlete than Burton. You know what I'm saying? No one is a threat to that man. He is an absolute beast, and he can beat the shit out of anybody on that field. But to go out of his way to hit a female is my problem, is my biggest concern, and that's why it needs to be addressed. If it's a tennis, if my big ass is on the field and I'm coming at him and I'm saying some shit and he pushes me out of the way, that's, that comes with it. I shouldn't have crossed the border. But when you look at this video and try to it's because it's broke down, brother. It is broke down in slow motion, and you can kind of see it was. I can't defend him. I really can't. And any Alabama fan, that's going to be their reaction is that, well, there shouldn't be fans on the field. Yeah, there shouldn't be. But, again, she was not going to him. She was going to celebrate with her fellow fans.
Right. Yeah, and the only video I've seen, Shane, was the one where it looked like it was taken from wherever that damn golf ball came from in the upper deck towards Lake Kiffin. So I've not seen all the videos. I'm sure you're on TikTok breaking it down like the damn Zapruder film out there. You know what?
Well, and there's another video of like I said, it looks like it was a handheld camera situation where it sounded like a guy was approaching him and talking shit, but Burton didn't. I mean, it looked like he pushed the phone out of the way,
Right.
That I understand. That I'm cool with, get that camera out of my face. We just lost an emotional game. The last thing you want to see is some homer coming out of the stands. But this right here, I couldn't justify it because, again, it's a woman, man, and it's not, and I'm not trying to be sexist or anything like that, but maybe it's just the way I was raised. You just don't put your hands on a woman, and
I got
you. She did not assault him. She didn't put her hands on him. He's the only one that actually initiated contact here.
Well, you got to think. This is the last thing I got on it, Shane. I mean, you got to think he's got to be suspended at the very minimum, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think there is a quote or a statement that Nick Saban is aware. I mean, hell, it's on Fox News now. I mean, everybody knows it's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It is out there, and it will be addressed. And I expect Nick Saban to do the right thing, and I expect Burton to do the right thing. To man up and apologize and I don't know what ramification. I mean, this isn't a topic that typically comes up during a football game, so I don't know exactly what Sankey and company are going to do, but I expect a pretty severe punishment here.
Handle discipline issues internally, and that's the way we'll handle this. But as I said today, when I was asked about the whole, the league has tried to control people, rushing the field. And, it's a difficult circumstance for the league. It's a difficult circumstances for the people who are on the field. But, we got to go through those difficult circumstances and still respect other people. And I think that's on us to do that. And that's certainly a lesson, for all of us to learn relative to this. We handle, discipline issues, internally. And that's the way we'll handle this.
All right, Shane. Well, let's move on here to the show topic. Kind of similar to last episode. Trying to make it a little bit more simple for you, though, brother. I'm handing out grades for each team. They're just an overall grade, as well as I've broken it down here, Shane. Offense gets a grade, defense gets a grade, and then an MVP for each team, and we're just doing this because it literally is the midpoint of the SEC season. So how's that sound, and do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, well, I would. It's funny you mention this because my daughter brought her grade card home today, right? The true story, Mike. True story, and I always pay. I pay $10 for an A, $5 for a B, and if you get a C, you don't get anything.
Right,
it wipes it all out. So she comes, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, damn, she got an 84. I was like, I'm sorry, babe. I said, we got to work on this English. I'm probably not the perfect tutor for this thing. You know what I'm saying? I hated English. But I said, we got to work on this. We got to bring this grade up. And unfortunately, I can't pay. And she goes, Dad, I made all A's and B's. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You got an 84. And she goes, 84 to 90 or something like that is a B. And I'm like, when the hell did that happen? When did we change the grade? I don't know about you, Mike, but I was always under the impression that an A was 100 to 95. Mm-hmm. A B was a 94 to 85. And then a C was like 85 to 75, and then 75 to 70 is a D. Maybe it's been so long, you know what I'm saying? But anything under a 60 is an F, right? Is that right?
I think so.
Anything under a 70 is an F. Well, now it's not, man. 84 is a freaking B. When did that happen? Or is it just my kid's school? Maybe I'm bitching about my kid's school. I don't know. It's these damn participation awards. We just want them to get. They don't care. They just want them to get through school and get out of their hair. You know what I'm saying? So, all right.
Exactly.
So, but it does kind of change the topic. If you say it's a B, it's like, well, a B's not that good. B's not like it used to be, Mike. So
yeah, B is definitely not elite. So
okay,
I hope that makes sense. You even confused me here. But let's just start with Alabama, Shane. I'm giving the offense a C because I think they could certainly be doing better. I think the defense, I give them a B, which to me, the overall team grade is a B minus, Shane. I know they're 6-1, still top 10 in the country. I get it. You could still win the West, could still win the college football playoff, but I've been overall a little disappointed with them Alabama Crimson Tide. And for me, Shane, MVP, Bryce Young. Any issues with those grades I've given out here?
Oh yeah, ton. I think. Sorry, man. I'm just being honest with you. Alabama is an A+ offense, in my opinion. I mean,
did you watch the Texas game?
The Texas A&M?
Either one of them. I mean, neither one they were any good.
Well, let's break it down. We're talking Texas early in the season. Now, early in the season, was that offense efficient? No, but up to this point, where they're at, is this grade off where they're at now, or body of proof, like from week 1 to now?
Midseason.
Because I'm telling you right now, this Alabama offense, especially the offensive line, has finally got it together. They were able to protect Bryce for the most part, even though Tennessee was blitzing the entire time. Jameer Gibbs, didn't get quite the yards per carry that we thought he would. But how can you come away from that game thinking he's not one of the great, if not the greatest running back in the game? Bryce is, if not the greatest offensive quarterback. He's got to be right there at it. I would say if I was going to knock marks off, it would probably be at wide receiver. So maybe I tamper it a little bit and bring it down to an A, or potentially even worst case scenario A-. But anything lower than that, no. These guys can put up points on anyone, brother. This is a fantastic offense. And I think you were a little lax on the defense. I think you kind of flip-flop these things. Me, I'm going B+ on defense. I'm not saying Tennessee had an offensive juggernaut there at the line, but they were able to stop this Mr. Defense. A lot of people wanted to claim him the Heisman. He didn't even exist. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
And so I think I'm a little disappointed. Obviously, the secondary, if you're just take your fandom out of it for a second, Tennessee put a lot of points up against your secondary. Your secondary was your weakest part, and they weren't able to make Tennessee one-dimensional. They weren't able to stop the run. So I think right now Alabama defense, I'm giving them a B+. But that offense, I'm giving them an A or an A+. I just think they're great. Bryce, obviously, Heisman candidate, but right out of the gate, man, I like it. We're already disagreeing.
Sounds like you're going off your daughter's grading scale. All right, next let's go to Arkansas, Shane.
Yeah.
I'm giving the offense B+. I mean, at times they've been unstoppable, running machine. Defense, F, a failure at the midway point. And I could certainly see the case making KJ the MVP, but I'm going Rocket Sanders, leads the SEC in rushing. He's a team MVP. Any disagreements there?
Believe it or not, man, I think you spot on with this one. I like Rocket as the MVP. Nothing against KJ. It's just he hasn't been out there the whole time, And
right.
But I will say that this offense is improving based off last week's performance. So I think you were, if we were asked this poll last week, you would have been a lot lower. So I think that's a very good rating for Arkansas right now.
All right, how about Auburn, Shane? I'm giving the offense F. I'm not giving out a lot of Fs, but we've already hit 2 of them. Defense, B-. They've kind of been holding that thing together. And MVP, I'm giving it to my man Derek Hall, defensive end. He's just a nightmare off the edge for that Auburn Tiger defense.
Yeah, that or the punter. He's been pretty I'm sorry. I think you're right there. This defense there's a reason that Brian hasn't gotten fired yet. It's because of that defense, brother.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is with your MVP there. So I think you're spot on with this one. F is very low. I mean, that's just like the worst, but I walked away from that Auburn game or that Georgia game thinking I did watch the worst offense this season. So
Yeah.
I'm with you right there. Good rating.
How about LSU, Shane? I'm giving the offense. They've been up and down. Maybe this was a little high, but I'm giving them a B plus.
Okay.
And the defense a B minus. And I got MVP Jaden Daniels, who I've said repeatedly, he may be the most valuable player to his team in the SEC this season. Just when I'm talking about you take him off a team, I don't know what the hell the LSU is.
No, that's a great point, man. And he is a centerpiece of that offense. And he's able, he's just able to continuation of drives, So I think that's important. I'm with you on the offense. I'd probably dock him a little bit. I'd probably put them at that B spot. But again, I do think that this is a team that is improving on that side of the ball. Defense, yes, I think you're spot on with them. We're not grading special teams here, or they would be the F. Right now they don't have a punt returner on that side. Just let it go, man. Just block it or so. That's what I would do. Just wherever it lies, that's where we'll start. But other than that, I think you nailed the LSU Tigers here.
All right, how about Ole Miss, Shane? I'm giving the offense B plus. I think overall it's a very good unit. And then the defense has kind of stunned me, Shane. They're starting to crack a little, but again, we're just going off halfway through. I'm giving the defense an A minus with MVP. This may surprise you, Shane. Quinshaw Junk is the freshman running back. I mean, he's just been a revelation. Zach Evans has been great as well, but Judkins has been kind of the standout up to this point.
And the only reason your offense is ranked that high is because of those two. So
right.
I think Evans could have been higher, could have been the MVP if he was 100% healthy the entire time. This one may be you flip flop them toward the tail end of this season, but. No, I think you're right. This is one of the most prolific rushing attacks in the SEC right now. And I think, what did you get them? B plus, did you say?
B plus offense, A minus defense.
Offense, yeah. I would say that, and then maybe even B plus defense. I think we're getting a little the little break in the running defense last week, and that's something they've been really strong at. So I'd probably bring them down just a little bit, just a notch. But overall, I think you nailed this one as well.
How about Mississippi State, Shane? I'm going B plus for the offense. A little bit more consistent. They'd probably be an A, and then the defense, I'm going B minus because, man. Yeah. Chris Rodriguez ran all over you. LSU took advantage of you in the fourth. If not for those, maybe we'd give you a little bit better grade. And for MVP, Will Rogers, because I don't know where this team would be without old Will Rogers.
Yeah, without Will Rogers, they'd really be up the creek. But I think that's the problem we've got with Mississippi State is which team shows up. I talked about the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. That's kind of what we're getting with the Pirates' offense and defense. It's sometimes they come out and they look dominant, and sometimes they look like passive old Mississippi State teams. So
right.
I'm with you here. I think you nailed the rating right there at that average. And the only reason we're average is because sometimes they're A plus, sometimes they're C minus. And I think just based on where you're going to get them, it's going to be right there at that B level.
All right, how about Texas A&M, Shane? I'm giving the offense a D and the offense a B with MVP Devon Awchain, because without Awchain, Shane, I'm giving this offense an F. You know what?
Yeah, I think you're still a little low on the defense. This Texas A&M defense legit, and I mean, there's a reason they hung in there with Alabama and hell a lot of these games. So I'm going to go A minus on the defense right now, and the offense is improving. So I'm going to give them a D plus because they finally got a little bit of movement in the chains, but still they're too one-dimensional right now for me, and for me to give them a higher rating than that, I'd just be lying. But Awchain is that offense, so definitely the MVP.
All right, how about Florida, Shane? I'm giving the offense C minus, and the defense C. With the MVP, this, he's a hell of a player, but I don't know if you ever want an interior offensive lineman to be your MVP. Osiris Torrance, just one of the best linemen in the SEC, but hell, you just never know who's going to show up one week or another if you're a Florida fan.
Yeah, that's what we're getting, man. And we're sensing a theme in some of these teams, just a little too inconsistent. Obviously you'd love to have Anthony Richardson as your MVP and looking at an undefeated season, but this is where we're at. We don't know which one's going to show up. So I'm kind of with you. I think that this defense is up and down, and I think that they're progressively getting worse, in my opinion. And I think a little bit of that's to do with just aches, man. Just thin back there. We talked about that competitive depth, but at the start of the season, man, we would have had these guys a lot higher. But right now, they need a bounce back.
All right, how about Georgia, Shane? I'm giving the offense a B. Couple performances away from being an A, but the defense A+. I think this is the first A+ I've handed out here, Shane, with MVP. Could make the case for Stetson, but he's had a couple so-so performances, so I'm giving it to their beast of a tight end, Brock Bowers, MVP.
Yeah, I get that. Brock, I mean, there's been games he was the only offense, so I definitely get that. But I would say they're a little bit higher.
Yeah.
I think you're a little bit bullish here on Georgia's offense. The fact of the matter is they just don't have to stretch it. We're not seeing the offense because they don't have to really play the offense. When Auburn, that game was out of hand, we had backups in there. But I did see some aggressive play. I did see some new faces getting involved, which was nice. This is a very multi-dimensional offense that just not needed to exercise it yet. So I'm going to go A- with the Georgia Bulldog offense and A+ with defense. Or offense, defense A+. They're just, like you said, they didn't miss a step off last season. And MVP, I think you could go Stetson here, but I think this is Brock's game right now.
You hear what that is? That's a Tennessee homer buttering up them dogs. So they'll go easy on them here in a couple
they're
weeks.
So good. Man, I was looking at prices for that game. And they start at like $500, $600, man. And it's like partial view, you're like kind of behind shit and stuff, So I'm like, I don't know, maybe I watch this one at the TV. But then I was like, what's the most expensive one? Because I'm always curious. And it was $11,500 per ticket. So I'm like, golly, $23,000, So I made the joke. I want to give her a shout out here. I made a joke that it's either putting her through 2 years of college or I go down here and watch one of the Tennessee Georgia game. So many decisions to make. And our girl there in Arkansas, she sent me this damn thing. I thought it was hilarious. Let me just pull it up real quick, Mike, and then All right, Dana Rogers, she says, Votech school, buddy. And I said, yep, I hope she knows how to weld.
All right, moving on, Shea, Kentucky. C. I'm giving a C for the offense. Will Levis has, he's been great. The receivers have emerged. Now we got Chris Rodriguez. So maybe you put him a little bit higher, but our damn identity of a program is the offensive line, and they have let us down. B+ on the defense, and I'm giving MVP to Will Levis because, hell, the one game we saw him without him, God, they were awful.
Well, I'm a little higher. C+ on the defense for me. Offense, I think they're coming back around. So give me B-. I think now they've got all their tools. They're healthy. They're ready to roll. So Kentucky's offense is about to put some points on the board.
Buttering up them cats. I see. Okay. All right, Missouri, Shane. Offense, D.
Yeah.
Defense, pleasant surprise in my opinion. B. I'm giving them a B. And MVP, the impact transfer linebacker, Tyron Hopper, he has just been an animal. I consider Dominique Lovett, Shane. You could easily put him in there, but he has missed a game. He's got a little banged up, and that was kind of the decider for me.
Yeah, and I think why they didn't win that Florida game was because Lovett wasn't 100%,
Right,
So
right.
I think I'm giving him the MVP because I think that right now is the offense. But I think you nailed the other ones. This defense is playing better than anybody's talking. No, they're just not getting enough respect, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, how about South Carolina, Shane? I'm giving the offense a C and a defense a B with MVP Marshawn Lloyd because I think he has revitalized this offense. And hell, even in the games they're losing, he's having strong performances. He's putting that offense on his back.
Yeah, and this defense feels like it's improving as the season goes along, so maybe bump that one up here toward the tail end. But, yeah, Lloyd is all the part. This is the 5-star we signed up for, and he's looking good.
Yeah. All right, Tennessee, Shane, offense, F.
Nah.
No, my only other A+, Tennessee's offense. How can you say anything other?
Yeah.
And the defense, hey, they've been exposed at times, but they are improving. They are doing their part, Shane, for them undefeated fall. So I'm giving them a B-.
Yeah.
I think you could talk me into a B, perhaps. And the MVP, no other choice, I don't think, than Hendon Hooker.
Yeah. Well, when you're on the field the entire time, it's tough to get that defense rating up. But, the fact of the matter is they've played a lot of great quarterbacks and they've played a lot of great running backs, and they've kept them all in check to the most part. So I think you're spot on here.
Now, last team, Shane, Vanderbilt, I've been very surprised by this offense.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm grading this a little bit on a curve, but I'm giving them a B+. Just how they wowed me on that side of the ball. Unfortunately, defense, I'm giving you an F. You've been awful. A long way to go on that side of the ball. And then MVP, I mean, this is a stunner. A.J. Swan, freshman quarterback. I mean, he may be in the NFL one day. I don't even think that's that big of an exaggeration.
Yeah, no, this is one of those guys. I see him as a backup, like a career backup for 14 years. He's bounced around.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that he can't excel and move on and be a starter in the NFL, but he is that offense and a great piece to have. I think you're a little high on their offensive rating just because they were unable to do anything against Georgia and Alabama. And I know a lot of people haven't, but, there's been a lot of teams that have put points on the board. So I'm going to bring them down just a notch, but I am pleasantly surprised, and all that has to do with Swan.
Yeah. Well, Shane, we're about to kick it over to our interviews, but just real quick, we didn't want to just not mention this or anything, but some tragic news here from Starkville announced on Wednesday. Shane, freshman offensive lineman Samuel Westmoreland of Tupelo, Mississippi, he passed away today, Shane. Only 19 years old. This has been confirmed by the school. And, man, they don't really provide details on what exactly happened. But, man, just a tragedy here in the SEC. You know what?
Yeah, you really hate to hear that, man. A man with I got kids, and I can't imagine, burying any of them. So my heart and all my prayers go out to the family and, in their time of need. And I just hate to hear that.
All right, Shane, so let's kick it over to our interview with Michael Katz from the DJ Journal. Well, we're pleased to be joined once again by a friend of the show, Michael Katz. Give him a follow, Michael L. Katz on the Twitter machine, and he, of course, covers the Ole Miss Rebels for the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. He's also Paul Feinbaum's favorite Michael. How you doing, brother?
I don't know how many Michaels I'm going against, but I'll take the compliment. I'm doing well. It's crazy that it's already like basically November. Season just is flying by. I can't believe that we're 7 games in. It's just insane.
Yeah, no doubt. And once again, you're like a damn lucky charm for them Ole Miss Rebels. Last season, of course, the Sugar Bowl, most wins in regular season program history. Now they're off to an even better start, 7-0. Let me ask you this, Michael, because, this blew my mind. I heard someone say it earlier in the season that aside from Alabama, aside from Georgia, which everybody recognizes as arguably the best 2 programs in the country, Ole Miss has got the best record in the SEC the last 2 seasons. Why does this team and this program get the lack of respect, do you think?
I think it's because traditionally Ole Miss has I don't want to say sabotaged itself, but it has sometimes, it's hit the highs and then it's gone back down to earth, and people say, oh, that's just Ole Miss. I think people they remember what Ole Miss has been, and they do know the highs, but they also remember the lows. And so I think there's sort of Ole Miss has kind of lacked that consistency over the years. And now that it appears they have it, I think people are still skeptical of how long that can keep going. Is it real? When does the shoe drop? And I don't think that's fair, because I think what Lane Kiffin has done here is pretty remarkable given where the program was a couple years ago. Obviously with Hugh Freeze stuff, the Matt Luke stuff, the turnaround has been pretty remarkable, and especially the way they've done it with the transfers and all that stuff. It is pretty remarkable how, you know, we don't think about Ole Miss in that same sort of atmosphere as Alabama and Georgia, and Ole Miss hasn't made the playoff, and that's part of it too. But what they've done is it's pretty spectacular, and is sort of, I think, has gotten Ole Miss fans really excited for the first time in a while.
Now, how much confidence do you have after covering this team, traveling with the team on a week in, week out basis? How confident, Michael, are you that Ole Miss can stay atop the SEC West standings by the end of the season? I'm not even saying go undefeated, which you may have to do, but maybe not. What's your confidence level that this team can win the West?
It's going to be really hard, and I think it starts this weekend at LSU, and then the next weekend at Texas A&M. And I think that A&M game maybe isn't what we thought it might be when the year started, but that's still a really hard place to win. And, you know, you have to expect they're going to be playing better. And LSU, Ole Miss has played 2 road games this year at Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech, and that had a combined 71,000. There's going to be 100,000+ at Death Valley this year. That's going to be new for this team. And it's a team that you have a lot of guys from a lot of different places, and I don't know if they've all seen this sort of atmosphere yet. And I don't think it's going to overwhelm them or anything, but it is something that is going to be really interesting to see if they get hit in the mouth early, and that place gets as loud as I think it's going to be. Can they, you know, battle back the way they did against Vanderbilt? You know, when you're down 20-17 against Vanderbilt, that's, you know, you can score 28 straight points or whatever it was. It's a little bit different, and it wasn't really a crowd to take out of it. It's going to be a lot harder at LSU. And so I think these 2 games, you know, the Bama game is going to be what it's going to be. I know that Bama fans are kind of in their feelings right now, but that place they're going to be fine. We've seen this before where Saban, you know, they lose one game and then they go on the streak and just like never lose again. That's going to be an interesting game here. And then that Arkansas game is going to be a good one too in Fayetteville. You know, I'm shocked, honestly, they beat BYU last week, just kind of given where they had been in the last couple of weeks and how kind of bad their pass defense was. That's going to be a tough place to play. And Ole Miss in Arkansas always play really weird games. And then you got the Egg Bowl, which, you know, State has looked pretty good for the most part. It is here, but, you know, the Egg Bowl, I don't think it really matters where it is to an extent. It's always going to be pretty fairly even for the most part in terms of fans. Though obviously, you know, there'll be more Ole Miss fans there this year, but it's going to be really, really hard. You know, when you looked at the schedule when the season started, you know, 6-0, 6-1, 5-2, something like that seemed kind of where we thought they'd be. Obviously, they have achieved the best they can. And then you looked at the back half and you said, man, is this going to be like 2-3? Is this going to be 3-2? What does that look like? And so I think it's just, I think they're going to do well. I think they're going to win probably around 9 games, but that means that they're going to drop some of these late. And because of that, I don't see it happening. It totally could. Maybe they totally, you know, do what people don't think they can do. But that schedule is about to get really, really brutal.
Have you been able to put your finger on why the defense has taken a little bit of a step back here in recent weeks? Because I thought coming out, the Ole Miss defense was one of the biggest surprises in the entire SEC, in my opinion. Not that they're terrible or anything, but, you know, Auburn, you know, they had a very, very productive day on them. Have you been able to put your finger on why that is?
It's funny because you look at the overall numbers, and I think it's like 17 points per game allowed, which is like pretty good. But you look at the last like 3 games, and not coincidentally, those are the SEC games. The tackling has been really bad. They have missed a lot of plays they were making. And I think part of that is the caliber of player they're seeing now is a lot better than they were seeing against Troy and Central Arkansas and Georgia Tech. No disrespect to them. And I think too, and this is why I think this LSU matchup is really interesting, is Ole Miss, when they have played against mobile quarterbacks this year, they have struggled to stop the running games of those offenses. When they played Tulsa, the backup quarterback came in, and all of a sudden, Tulsa was running the ball all over the place. They had like 260 yards, and they're almost an air raid the way they came into that game. Robbie Ashford at Auburn has struggled as a passer. He runs for 2 touchdowns and they run for 301 yards, led by Tank Bigsby. And so that type of quarterback, the guy who, even if he isn't getting a ton of yards on his own, who is a threat, that has opened up run games for opposing teams. And that's what Jaden Daniels can do for LSU too. He's their leading rusher. He's got 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. So I think that's going to be, I think, the matchup. If they can't shut that down, it's going to be a really, really long day. And, they can, they practice tackling, they do all that stuff. But I do think that the quarterbacks who can operate in the run game, I think, is where they've really kind of hit a snag.
Do you think Lane has confidence in Jackson Dart to win him a game on the road in the SEC?
I do. Again, it's a very, very different example, but the one game this year where Ole Miss's running game wasn't working was at Vanderbilt. I think they only ran for 110 or whatever it was, and Jackson threw for 448 and 3 touchdowns. And obviously, yes, that's Vanderbilt. It's going to be very different. They came in with a not great pass defense. We know that. But I think, obviously they are going to try to establish the run. And that's what this Ole Miss team does. When you've got running backs like Judkins and Evans and Dart, who, they had all 3 of them ran for 100 yards last week. You're gonna try to do that until you absolutely can't. But I do think that this version of Jackson Dart is a lot different than the version we saw against Troy. I think he's a lot more confident. He seems to be in rhythm. He seems to, his receivers have kind of started to emerge. Mingo has had a really nice season. You've got Jordan Watkins and Malik Heath and Dayton Wade last week. They've had guys start to step up. Now, Michael Trigg is not on the depth chart right now. He left that game at Vanderbilt early. That's a big one because he was he was the freak that everybody thought was going to be the superstar, and he'd been a little bit inconsistent. But I do think they trust Dart. I don't think they want to necessarily put the game in his hands. But I think if push came to shove, and if it was a close game late and the run game wasn't working, I think they trust him.
Now you hit on the road environment, completely different animal here in Tiger Stadium. How well do you think the team will handle this being their first true road test? And maybe more importantly, Michael, does Juice go on the trips with the team?
I only know because Juice's account sometimes tweets "bring Juice on the plane" or "bring Juice on the bus." So I'm assuming he doesn't, and he's mad about it. And maybe that's why he eats all the shoes and the binders and gets into all the mischief. It's a cry for help. But this is just going to be so different from what they've been in this year. And I think it was after the Kentucky game, Jackson Dart said, this is the best environment I've ever been in. And Von Hemingway was electric that day, but that's 64,000 people. That there's going to be way more, and they're going to be all against you for the most part in LSU. And I know Jackson has experience in the Pac-12, but I'm a Pac-12 guy at heart. I'm from Southern California. Those stadiums aren't exactly the same. Doesn't matter how full it is. It's a different world. And I know he started games. He's never going to have seen anything like this. And so I do think it's going to be interesting. I don't think they're going to be afraid or anything like that, but I don't know if you can tell the guys and how tough it's going to be, and you can blare the music and the fight song and all that stuff. I don't think you really understand it till you're there.
Now, would you support Lane Kiffin for SEC Coach of the Year at this point in time, or is it you're still kind of in wait and see mode based on how they perform the second half of the season?
I think it's still kind of wait and see. Again, he has done an amazing job. I think everybody is thinking about Josh Heupel right now, just with everything Tennessee has done and what they just did last week in that crazy game, and just the place they're in right now. But if they keep doing this thing and say they beat Alabama and maybe they lose 1 or 2 games and they have another 10-2 season with all the turnover they had, especially, you lose Corral, you lose your 3 leading running backs, and you bring in all these new guys, and no one was really sure how it was all going to fit together. If you win 10 games, fit together really, really well. And so I do think it's still wait and see, but he's got to be in there just for the way that he has played the cards that have been dealt in terms of how things work now with the portal and having to sort of recruit in different ways. He's embraced it, and I think that's a big part of the wins and losses are obviously a big part of it, but he has constructed his team the way he's sort of had to, and he hasn't been stubborn about it. And I know a lot of coaches have been outspoken about this sucks and this isn't sustainable. Lane has just done it, and he's done it really, really well. And so I think for all those things, he's definitely going to be in the conversation.
Well, if they're going to beat Alabama, they better plug in the popcorn machine this time around. Final question for you, Michael. Moment of truth here on the road. I'm not putting this out till Thursday, so I don't want to tip your plans for your prediction, but does Ole Miss stay undefeated, or does LSU pull off their first top 10 win of the season?
So unfortunately, the cat is already out of the bag because somebody I turn my picks every Monday, and on our podcast, someone was like, "And Michael, you chose this." I was like, "Well, dang it, now it's already out there." I think the first loss comes here. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. It's going to be like a 34-31 game. And is it a game Ole Miss could win? Absolutely. I think they're going to play really, really well. I just think that it's just going to be really, really hard. They're going to have to play an almost perfect game, and I think it's hard to play a perfect game at LSU, especially with kind of where we got this perception of LSU from that Florida State game, like, oh, they're going to be awful. They've turned it around pretty well, other than that Tennessee game. They've looked really, really solid, and so. Brian Kelly's done a nice job there. He was always going to do a good job there. I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule, especially after that first game. I do think LSU wins. Would I be surprised if Ole Miss pulls it off? Absolutely not. But my gut says that this is the first one, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that, you can learn a lot from a loss, and you can rebound, and it's not like it's a lost season or anything like that. But it feels like it's going to be tough.
Before you go, Michael, can you tell all the folks where to find all your outstanding work?
Yes, you can go. Outstanding is a strong word, but I appreciate the compliment. You can go to djournal.com, click on our Ole Miss tab. You can also follow me on the Twitter machine at Michael L. Katz. I'm on there way too much, as Michael can attest to. I probably need to put down the phone sometimes. But you gotta have fun on there. There's occasionally there's some good content on there too. But you're just gonna see a lot of tweets about me being a sad LA Los Angeles sports fan these days, mixed in with some Ole Miss content. So,
all right, Chase. So, hey, it's not often we got a homer on here that picks his team to lose. Well, he's not. Yep. He's a respected media member. I'm not sitting here saying he's a homer, but pretty interesting stuff. So, thank Michael for joining the show. He's always a good time. You know what?
Absolutely, man. I'll never pick against them balls. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
So let's get to the other side of it, Shane. Preston Guy from TigerBait.com. He is entertaining as hell. You got to check out his YouTube page and everything they're doing over there. I mean, it's just one wild interview after another. So now we got the Ole Miss side. Let's kick it over to the LSU side. All right, hey, we're pleased to once again be joined by Preston Guy. Did not scare him off enough to not want to ever come back. So I really appreciate you, Preston. Give him a follow at PGuy_77. He covers the LSU Tigers for TigerBait.com, and he has an outstanding YouTube show Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock Central. You got to be there. And if you miss it, you can watch it on demand like I do. Preston, thank you so much for joining the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, Michael. I'm hoping you step up your game this time so I'm not so privy to come back on, but we'll see.
Well, I was just joking off air. Man, you have some very entertaining shows, and you just had one with, of course, Glenn Guilbeau. If you follow LSU, you know that name, and his kind of back and forth on just kind of ribbon on the Billy Napier versus Brian Kelly. So it is a great time. How was it to have that conversation with Glenn?
It was fun with Glenn, especially, when you're on the winning side of the argument. all the chips are stacked in my favor. So I really don't even have to do stuff. I just have to ask questions and watch him stumble. But I do like Glenn. Glenn's a good guy, personally speaking, but he does love to stir the pot with his writing. And it served him well throughout the years. He's won many awards, and he's moved on the Outkick and had a very successful career, but he's also pissed a lot of people off. We did make the distinction of he's currently the most hated writer amongst LSU fans, not amongst SEC yet. He hasn't earned that title yet. He's working on it. It's a goal for him.
Well, yeah, he's well on his way to earning that, but he's always been kind to me, so I do appreciate Glenn as well. But hey, let's focus on this Ole Miss game. That's why we had you on. Game of the week in the SEC. Before we kind of go on a deep dive on it, let me ask you this, Preston. How nervous, scared, whatever adjective you want to use, do you get when LSU's special teams takes the field?
Well, I had a tweet last week that I think just summarizes everything. I had to let people know, guys, this is not a joke. At what point do you seriously just stop returning kicks? Because they've had 4 muffed punts this year. I mean, wouldn't you say that all your punt return and kick return yardage isn't worth 8 turnovers in a year? I mean, that's absurd. You got to get the ball. And at a certain point, if you cannot secure that ball, just give it up. Let them punt it back as far as they want, because you got to get it. And I wasn't saying go there yet, but it's like, I mean, at a certain point, you got to ask that question, like, when does it get bad enough? And that's how bad it is. So I'm nervous. I don't see any signs of it getting better. A lot of people have thrown Brian Polian under the bus, and I'm sure even Brian Polian is hard on himself right now. My thing is that you don't really coach a guy to catch a punt. That either is a talent or not. The only way it'd be a coaching issue is if they're not vetting these guys well enough. I just cannot imagine a scenario where they're not vetting guys to catch that ball. But right now they've got a walk-on, Clayton, returning these kicks. And that's kind of a stark reminder. LSU has 65 scholarship players. Brian Kelly did an outstanding job of building this roster back to compete in the SEC, and he's 5-2 for a reason. He just beat Florida pretty handily. That being said, this roster still held together with paper clips and bubble gum. Make no doubt. It's like a yacht that you put some Flex Seal on just to get it floating for a year. A lot of transfer portal guys, a lot of guys coming off of injury, a lot of guys coming off of both. And they're trying their best, but when you don't have a guy who can just have steady hands and return a kick every single play, that's indicative of how things are. This isn't your stereotypical talent rating roster. Lane Kiffin said it's the most talent he'll play all year. I think Lane Kiffin might be a little off there once you consider the depth. So yeah, special teams are concerning, more so than even the kicks. Sometimes the coverages are off, but my gut tells me that these special teams are more so reflective of this roster lacking some serious depth.
And how wild is it, Preston, that despite everything you just said, and I agree with you, LSU sitting here at number 3 in the West. They're obviously playing number 1 this weekend. They got number 2 Alabama at home. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying LSU is going to win the West. I think I'd be a little crazy, but they have at least put themselves in position by the midway point. Did you see this coming?
I think they're right exactly where I had them predicted at this point. I predicted them 8-4. I still think they're going 8-4. Now they definitely have an opportunity to turn things up if that offense clicks the way it clicked last weekend. If the defense plays the way we've seen it capable of playing at times, and then on top of that, special teams, Jesus of Nazareth shows up and fixes special teams. This is a team that will compete in every game and can win out. I think Alabama's shown some vulnerabilities, and Ole Miss certainly has shown some vulnerabilities, and you can beat both those teams and win out. And I expect LSU to beat A&M. I expect LSU to beat Arkansas, and I expect them, of course, to beat UAB. And if you do that, you're playing for everything. You're going to win the West and be in the SEC championship against either a rematch against Tennessee or Georgia, and you're playing for everything. That would be phenomenal. Let's go back to reality, though, Mike. LSU's got some problems, and in their first 5 Power 5 opponents, that offense was a clunker in the first half. and it was slow. And it wasn't until they were in absolute desperation mode that they let Daniels loose, and he finally got some points, and they were able to win most of those games. Or they lost 2 of them, obviously, but they won the rest. In Florida, they scored on their first 6 drives, and that was unprecedented. So are they going to do that? Are they going to go back to the slow start LSU offense? I mean, my inclination is that they will go back to normal. Now, the fan in me might say, hell yeah, they've turned the corner, Michael. They got it. They're going, but it's like that's not reasonable. In football, you tend to gravitate to the mean. You go back to the normal. What also stands up matchup wise in this game, Ole Miss has a terrible running defense. You can take advantage of Ole Miss by grounding and pounding and just having an efficient run game. Jaden Daniels is LSU's leading rusher. He plays quarterback. Okay, LSU's leading rusher right now is a former walk-on, Josh Williams, right, who has outplayed all expectations. He was supposed to be your 4th back. He's been your number 1 back. But LSU's running game, and it's a combination of running back depth. Right now, you've got 2 running backs giving you any productivity at all, John Emery and Josh Williams, right? You don't have the depth. Brian Kelly wants 4 backs. You've got 2. So you don't have the depth. And then the offensive line has been, it's like a juggling clown at the radio. They've been just shuffling guys in and out. This guy's hurt, that guy's hurt. And there's been no continuity and no chemistry there. So LSU doesn't have the running offense, even if the statistics show up on paper, because Jaden Daniels scrambles for an extra 30, 40 yards a game. It doesn't actually have the running game designed to take advantage of Ole Miss. So I think it's a bit of a matchup problem just because LSU isn't built to take advantage of what Ole Miss gives you.
Now, here's something, Preston, that I've been kind of echoing time and time again. I think Jaden Daniels is the most valuable player in the SEC. And that doesn't mean he's he should be up for the Heisman or anything like that. But I'm saying, remove him from the roster. I think LSU takes a huge step back, more so than any player in the SEC if you removed them from their team. Could you get behind that?
Yeah, I definitely could. I think Nussmeier, the offense, it would just change so much. You would have to, Nussmeier would have to do things very differently. Nussmeier probably brings more arm talent to the table, but his decision-making is not up there yet. Certainly in terms of percentage of yardage of the offense. He's got right under 2. He's got 1,962 yards. I would bet LSU probably on the year has like 2,200 yards or something, maybe 2,300 total yards. So he's probably accounting for 85-90% of your total yardage. So yeah, you tell me if one guy you take out and you lose 90% of your offensive production. You tell me if there's another guy with more percentage of your production. Of course, with the other end of your question is that drop off. And I just don't know what the other guy's drop off would be, but I definitely think you're kind of in the right direction, just given the whole percentage of production angle.
And how impressed have you been with the offensive line and the coaching ability to like you said, mix the pieces in and out? Yeah. I mean, 2 freshman offensive tackles. I know Will Campbell came in with all this hype and he has lived up to it.
Yes.
It's very, very rare for that to happen in the SEC. We've seen it, 1 tackle here or there, but 2, that's insane.
Yeah. Well, they did a very good job recruiting these guys too. And that's the thing about Louisiana. You just recruit this state, you're going to get your dudes, you're going to get talent. And it's not always that you get quarterback and offensive line talent, but you got it last year. You got Walker Howard and you got those 2 guys, and you got other guys who haven't even played like Fitzgerald West, who will be a good center one day. It is rare to see 2 freshmen starting at tackle. And to be honest, they've been 2 of your better players. Emory Jones had a down game against Florida. He got worked a little. He did, but obviously it wasn't worked so bad. They scored 6 straight touchdowns. You give the offense an A+. Offensive line coming into the season was a bit of a disappointment. Actually, I thought the offensive line was going to be better based on what I saw in scrimmages where they were handling LSU's defensive line, including guys like Mason Smith had very quiet fall camps. And we all know how good Mason Smith was just based off of his half a drive of football he got to play. He was due for a monster season, and that hurts a lot to lose him on your first drive. But it's not necessarily the freshman guys that were the problem. Emory Jones came off the bench and earned that starting spot. It was the veteran guys and the transfer guys who kind of were, underperforming based on our expectations. I thought Miles Frazier was going to come in and be an all SEC left tackle. And he's played and he's been a starter, but he hasn't been that caliber of player. He may turn out to be, he's still got a lot of eligibility left, but the offensive line based on preseason expectations that I had has been a little bit of a disappointment. And, it's a liability for this offense. Just to be quite frank, Jaden Daniels is running for his life. And that's another reason why you lose Jaden Daniels, you lose that mobility, and most of his pressures and rushes. I mean, he's getting rushed within 2.5 seconds, and that's not good. That's not good. So offensive line's been a problem, but it is very impressive that these freshmen have been able to come in and take care of what they've been able to take care of. But it's just been tough to rotate in guys in and out, and it shows on the field that it's been tough.
Mm. Now, are you in the camp that Harold Perkins needs to be playing a lot more? I realize in the Tennessee game that was a point of contention, and the coaches, they came out and said, well, that's the personnel and the formations and everything. But where do you stand on that? Because from where I sit, Harold Perkins, throw him in with those other freshmen. I mean, he looks like one of the best young players in the conference.
Yeah, you definitely want to get there, but you have to get there above the shoulders. Linebacker's probably your toughest position to play above the shoulders on defense. It's like, a lot of ways it's like your quarterback of your defense. I liken him to Kendall Beckwith. I think he's more talented and more of especially a speed type athlete than Kendall Beckwith. But when Kendall Beckwith was a freshman at LSU, you could tell like he's so good, you got to get him on the field. But they put his hand in the dirt and got him rushing the passer on third down because he didn't know the playbook. Well, what they're doing is giving him a expedited version of the playbook and just trickling it into him and getting him in there in situations that he can be successful, right? Yeah, I want him on the field every single snap. Absolutely. But if he doesn't know the play, you're going to put him in a position to fail. And you don't want him in a position to fail. You want him in a position to succeed. You want him playing in his comfort zone. And if he's confused and looking around, he's not going to look like the talented player he looks like because he's not able to go full speed. He's a true freshman. He's working on it. Not to mention last couple of years at his high school, he was so good. They had to play him a lot at running back. Like he was like one of the best running backs in the country. So he's a little rusty on that linebacker position. So I actually enjoy what the coaches are doing with using him at linebacker because a lot of talented linebackers in the past and a lot of coaches still will do this. If they don't know the playbook, you're just on the bench. And that's that. But they're working on getting him packages that he's comfortable with. I expect by the time the bowl game's here, he will be an every down backer.
How well do you think LSU's run defense matches up with Ole Miss after Florida, I believe, went for over 200 in Tennessee? They had some good success against LSU's defense. Can they slow down Ole Miss? That's
a big question. I think LSU's got a good rush defense. I don't think it's elite. I think Ole Miss has a good rushing offense. This is a game. Every time I think about games like this, I think, man, Mason Smith would be a very big help to have right now. But credit to Matt House. He's done a pretty good job getting this defense to, stop the run. I do expect Ole Miss will run the ball with some success too. I think they're going to run for 400 yards or anything crazy like that. No. But I don't think LSU will have the upper hand. I think it's going to be enough to get Ole Miss the win.
And how big of a factor do you think the home field will be for LSU? Because Ole Miss, they have been on the road twice, but one was Vanderbilt. That's not really a away game, and the other was Georgia Tech. This is going to be a first for this Ole Miss team.
And these LSU fans are excited because it's LSU's favored. Vegas is picking LSU. I'm not picking LSU because I'm just looking at the matchup on the field and what I've seen from Ole Miss and what I've seen from LSU. But Vegas really likes what they're seeing. So maybe they know something I don't. Those bookkeepers are pretty good. So the fans are really hyped. They think this is LSU's first. Will be Brian Kelly's first signature top 10 win, and we all know that's his boogaboo from Notre Dame is those top 10 matchups. Well, if he can, nip that one in the bud year one at LSU with a ragtag roster, the LSU fans are feeling really good. Not to mention LSU is pretty much in good position to go 9-3. Which, if he goes 9-3, I'm gonna push like. Man, what Heupel's doing is crazy, but Brian Kelly should be right behind Heupel for Coach of the Year in the SEC at 9-3, straight up. But I just don't know. I'm still going Ole Miss 31-21 this weekend. I think the home field is going to be big, but not as big as a night game. Everybody was pointing out at the Tennessee game, well, LSU's 11 or 8-0 since 2000 at 11 a.m. Okay, dog, that's a very cherry pick stack. The fact that there's 8 of them, and you're excluding the Florida one that was played at 11 a.m. because it was rescheduled from a hurricane or whatever. It was supposed to be at Florida in 2016, so it's pretty cherry pick. Does anybody think that a 2:30 Death Valley is the same thing as a 7:30 Death Valley? No, it's just not the same. Saturday night in Death Valley is one of the most special atmospheres, but it's still Death Valley. It still will be a ruckus environment. It's just not going to be as ruckus as we've seen it, and I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Ole Miss handily wins this game 31-21. Not embarrassing, but they take care of business.
All right, Preston, really appreciate all your time. Can you tell the folks one more time, where's the best place to find all your work?
Yeah, so look, y'all can follow me on Twitter at PGuy_77. Any LSU fans watching, I want some hate tweets if I'm wrong. I'm not rooting against LSU. I went to LSU, so bring the smoke at my Twitter if I'm wrong. I'm loving it. But I do podcast Tuesday nights on the Tiger Bait YouTube channel. I try to have interesting guests on. I'll be taking my first week off in a while next week as my wife and I are expecting our first child. But we've got an interesting I guess I want to call them co-host, but replacement host next week. So y'all go check me out there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got one of the fastest growing LSU YouTube channels out there. And of course, you can always keep up with my writing and recruiting updates at tigerbait.com, one of LSU's first original premium recruiting service site.
Oh, buddy, how about it? So we got dueling homers here picking the opposite team. What in the world's going on out here?
God, did we just become best friends?
I think that if nothing else, Shane, that gives you an indication of just how great of a game this is going to be on Saturday. You know what?
Dude, absolutely. This thing's going to come down to the damn wire, and I can't wait for it, man.
Well, buddy, I appreciate you as always, but that's all I got on this episode. You got anything before we hop off the line?
Nope, that's it, man. My camera. Oh, damn. I got to do another one. Here you go. I was right at 30. Almost made it. That's why I just kind of rushing. But no, man, that's it. Like I said, we got a wild weekend. We keep saying that, like, the schedules don't look. I mean, we're gonna have, and then we walk away with like, damn, all these games are great. And I think we're gonna have another awesome weekend, especially when you got some of these kind of pick 'em games. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna come down the wire. Each team thinks they're gonna win, but one of them's got to walk away a loser. And then I just can't wait to just embrace it all, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, as always, Shane, I appreciate you. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.
Man, almost made it, huh?
Yeah.